Joe Beckman, how are you, brother?
Ellie, I am so good. How are you, buddy?
I'm so good, and I'm better now because I have been chasing you and trying to tie you down. You are so busy, and I'm so grateful that you're able to take the time. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Thanks for being you, and thanks for being persistent, and thanks for being patient. And I can't wait just to have an awesome conversation.
This is incredible. So, can you share with our incredible audience who you are and what you do and who you serve?
My name is Joe Beckman. I am a speaker. I speak in school communities all across the United States. About 7 years ago, I started my own business called Happy Caveman. And since then, we've pivoted and shifted to an organization called TILL 360, TILL 360. And that stands for Teach, Inspire, Listen, and Learn. And 360 stands for the fact that we take a holistic approach when we work in school communities. So we don't work with just students. We work with students and we work with staff. And we don't work with just staff. We also work with parents and community members because we believe it takes a holistic approach. It takes a village. Adults need to hear a lot about what we're talking about just as much as students. And so we are in the business of creating change, of fighting for kids, and supporting schools and the amazing educators that make up these schools.
I had the privilege of the first time I met you, we were in a speaking competition together, and
Right.
you are by far one of the best speakers I have ever heard.
Very
Um,
kind.
yeah, I came second to you, and happily so. I remember you getting down on your knees, I believe, and just you were in it like I've never seen a speaker in it, and you had every single person in the audience in tears and just eating out of the palm of your hand. But the beauty of that is when you crack somebody open the way you did and the way you do consistently, it's almost like I believe that emotions move, right? Like joy moves and anger moves, but shame or fear or that calcifies, right? Or those feelings of unworthiness calcify.
Yeah.
And then you get a guy like you to come up on a stage and crack that chrysalis, and it lets the light in. And whether literally they're saying the words, or you have some sort of feeling that they're going, "Oh, me too."
Yeah.
And when you get the audience to say me too, you got them, but you got them so that you can give them your gift. Can you talk about the gift that you give? I mean, I've seen it again and again, and it is unbelievably powerful to watch the way you switch human beings on.
Um, so I think as you're saying that, first off, thank you. It's a beautiful metaphor. And I think you're right. I think that idea of shame and fear and sadness and heartbreak and tragedy does calcify if we let it calcify. And for a lot of people, that's where it goes, right? And then we stuff it down, and then we don't even see or feel the calcification of it anymore. If that's
Yeah.
the word calcification, we'll go with it if it's not. But and so I love the idea of that's exactly what I do. We just kind of crack that a little bit. Um, and I think we do that in two ways. The first is the two words that start with the letter P. The first is play. I get them to smile, and I get them to laugh, and I get them to let their guard down, and I get them to know that this is not going to be a 45-minute talk that is going to be the heaviest moment of their life. But also, I invite them to be engaged, and I sort of command it in a way that's like, listen, if you're going to be here, I need you to be here. And if you can't be here, please don't screw it up for somebody else who needs to be here. But I need you, and I do this through story, right? Story is the number one way to engage a heart, engage a brain, to really start cracking that calcification that's on their heart. And so I do that through story, and story that is humble and not always like, it's not me knocking it out of the park. It's usually me somehow screwing it up, messing it up, and talking about where I fell short along the way. And I think that humility matched with the play that we get them to smile and laugh. And then the second P in all of it to me is the permission. And I think all of us are just one step away from probably taking that next step in our life. And that means in so many ways could mean so many things, right? If you're a leader in a school and things are going well, maybe that next step in your life is to really use your voice and to create a legacy that is impossible to forget. If you're on the other end of the spectrum and you have, you don't have a mom or a dad, you don't have food on the table, maybe you're the parent that is taking care of the kids, or maybe some ungodly thing has happened to you in your life, and maybe your next step is just to see a glimmer of hope that it's not always going to be as hard as it is in this moment. And so I think that's the ability, just giving them the permission to take that next step for them. And I think based on the feedback that I get and the connections from kids afterwards and the messages I receive on social media, it seems as if that is working, right? Like we're cracking the chrysalis and we're giving the light in. And then hopefully after we go, they continue to build on that. And so that's what we're really trying to figure out is how do we, once we're in, how do we keep spreading and sharing and pouring more light in so that, we can keep cracking it off,
It's so powerful. So, how do you do that? I know a lot of our audiences, coaches, authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, and educators. So, for
Yeah.
those people who, I mean, you have a program and a membership site, if we're going to call it that, or a program that it's offering the kind of assistance that schools and educators and students need, and it's like Joe Beckman 365.
Yeah.
Because you work, like I've seen you work with high school students. In fact, I brought you to Canada to speak with our junior female firefighter boot camp students. And you came in, I think it was on day 2, when everybody's still a little nervous and not really putting themselves out there. And honest to God, Joe, like you put you in front of a group of kids, particularly high school kids who are known for being a bit shut down and a little, standoffish. And you can literally watch possibility wash across their face when they're amongst your presence. What does the program look like for you that is able to continue once you leave the school?
Yeah. I think the first thing that I would say, if there's people out there who are, kind of listening, going, where do I start or whatever? I think one thing we're really good at is we're really good at listening at what people say to us and then picking things up and going with that. Like you said, Joe 365, there was a teacher who pulled me aside after a conference and said, I just want Joe in my pocket. Joe
Mm-hmm.
in my pocket. And I went, wow, that's kind of a cool idea. And I heard it once. And then I heard it from another teacher at another time and another teacher in different versions. And so we went, okay, now we've heard it. It's been confirmed by a few different people. Let's create this Joe in the pocket idea and let's figure out how we do it as we go. I think there's a lot of people and everyone kind of goes in a different route that goes ready, aim, fire. And they get all their stuff in order. They get the perfect plan together. They iron out all the wrinkles. They make it perfect. And then they share it with the masses. I am a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. And
I
so
love
I get the confirmation and I go, okay, this is going to be an idea, but let's build the plane in the air as we're flying it. And let's adjust based on what we see and hear and get feedback on. And so that's kind of what we've been doing for the last 3 years, is really kind of figuring out, what is this platform? What is it not? What do schools need? What makes it easier? What are the hurdles that prevent somebody from even wanting to use it? I don't care if they buy it, we want them to use it. And so we're listening and learning to all of that. And I think that's just an incredible first step, or an incredibly important first step, I should say, to all of it in general, is really to listen and follow your gut and hear what people are saying and to take that and apply it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, can you talk about what's inside it a little bit? I know before recording you were saying, if they want to do a lesson on, say, kindness,
Yeah.
like what other topics do you cover in there that you have Joe in your pocket there for?
Yeah. And so here's how we kind of have it set up. There's a big organization that has basically said these 5 competencies are the most important that kids need to have from a social emotional learning level. And that company's called Castle. And it's kind of nationwide. And the people who ever are investing in social emotional learning for their students, they know what this organization is all about. And so they 5 major buckets. And so we've taken those major buckets and we have organized all of our video content that we've created over the years. We created video content, not with a plan in place, but we just knew that we were going to need it someday. And so again, building the plane in the air as we're flying it, we're like, okay, now we have this video on leadership. We have this video on kindness. We have this video on the importance of giving yourself grace and not thinking you have to have it all figured out by the time you're in 9th grade. Where do all of these fit within those 5 major competencies? And so that's what we did. And then we had somebody who was a former educator. They created a follow-up lesson that goes along with each and every one of the videos that we created. And so if I'm a school and are a teacher and I'm delivering this in my classroom, I could find a video on the topic that we were focusing on that month or that week. I could share it with my students, and then I could go to that follow-up lesson that has questions and activities that are already sort of ready for a teacher to take on. And so the way I look at it is that it's not a curriculum, in that there's a lot of curriculums that are very, very like rigorous, and you have to like follow a very certain order that they tell you to follow. I look at it like Netflix for character or leadership or social emotional learning, in that we have it all organized for you. All the genres are there, but you know better than I do what your school and your kiddos need. And so we'll let you choose, but we also can provide a scope and a sequence with schools if they need it. But that's kind of how it's set up, and schools use it, and they use it like an individual school will buy it for a year, or a district will buy it for all their schools for a year. And then they pay a yearly licensing fee to continue to have access to it.
That's genius. It kind of lends itself to the idea first you must inspire, then you can instruct.
Yeah, it really does. And that's a really, really, we do a lot of trying to get here in education, and we need to get here. But if we're not starting here, there's not a whole lot that's getting here. So it's kind of the entryway, the on-ramp onto the highway or the freeway, if you will.
How did you become the guy who is not only so emotionally aware, but you've literally dedicated your life to that? Who were you just before you realized this is your calling?
Yeah, man. I'm the youngest of 3, and I was always the kid who just, whenever I was told I couldn't, shouldn't, or wouldn't do something, I was like, fine, now I got to do it. And kind of like I stumbled into this work in that I was an athlete, but then I got hurt. And so I tried out for a play because I wanted to make more friends and meet more girls and, have more connections. And so I do that, get a part. And I was like, wow, this theater thing is pretty sweet. I love that. I don't exactly know why I love it, but I want to continue to pursue it. And then my mom told me I should never pursue it. And like, you don't go to college for a theater degree. You're never going to make any money. And then, okay, well, you told me I couldn't, shouldn't, or wouldn't. So now I must, will, and can do this thing. And so I decided I was going to be a theater major. And I just started saying yes to as many opportunities as I could to get myself out there, whether on stage or in front of people or in film or whatever. And it just like, again, being observant with the different people and the different things around me, hearing what people would say, knowing when I was really connecting and feeling joy in my heart, it always had something to do with kids. And so I always knew I wanted to work with kids, and that was like my gift. But then I also had this gift of presenting or performing. And so it just kind of, through saying yes, 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 that, path that was very wide just kind of got very narrow, and it became very clear that I need to be doing performance for students. And it started with like plays in schools, which I made like $15,000 a year, American dollars, which is not very much at all. And I thought I was like rich because I was doing this and I was awesome. And then I started working for an organization that did retreats in schools. And so they would do a day-long retreat, and it was awesome and great. And then I just kind of got the scratch or the itch or whatever you say, to get out on my own and figure out how I can do this with my own message, in my own way, on my own time, and my own calendar, and all of that. And so that's when I made the switch. And that was about 7 years ago. And it was, be honest with you, there's a lot of months at the beginning where I was looking at my credit card statement, which had a lot of words on it, and then looking at my the transcript of my bank, basically my bank bill, and it was like there was nothing on it in the positive. And so it was like, how are we going to pay for all this when there's not a lot here, right? And so you just kind of keep pushing and fighting and saying yes to everything you can. And eventually we started building. And so now we're here. And now I'm at the point where if a school called me today, there's no more days left in the calendar that I can do it, because I'm just every day I'm booked. And so now we're looking into next year and even 2023. So it's kind of, we're at that point, which is kind of crazy.
Do you think that vulnerability is teachable? Because here's what I notice, like, people are so apprehensive to let their whole selves show, right? Or to say the brave truth thing first. And again, once you do, and this is where you're incredible, is just saying the thing that everybody else is feeling. Do you think that skill is teachable? Because you are a savant at human connection and teaching human connection and allowing people that normally would not be interacting to open up with their whole heart. Do you think that vulnerability is learnable?
I guess yes. I mean, I don't have any sort of like real degree in this or any something that I'm like quoting or even any research on it, but I think it's anything. Like you can practice most any, just like basketball, just like golf, just like guitar. If you practice saying, I'm sorry, I screwed up every day as a parent to your kids, because let's be honest, we screw up every day. At least I do. Maybe you don't, but like, or the fans, people who are watching this don't, but I do. And if you practice calling that out, saying I'm sorry, that increases your ability to be more vulnerable. I believe that, like, it's almost like building a well, right? And so I think the answer would be yes. And for me, that's all I do on stage is I just share the junk, right? I don't always share the times when I knocked it out of the park, because those are few and far between. I talk about the times when I screwed up and I messed up. And if anybody wants to know how to compel a human heart the best, A, it's through story, and B, it's through the time where you screwed up, because all of a sudden you become a human. There's a great person that you and I both know named Pat Quinn, who
Hmm.
gave me great advice one time. He said, Joe Beckman, you need to be ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. And what people forget, and this is my observation, is that you are already extraordinary simply by putting a microphone in your hand and speaking coherently on a stage. Public speaking is people's number one fear in this world. And so when they see you being able to do that, you are already extraordinary. Box checked. Now let's go to ordinary. And that's where, through story, you can show people that you are just like them, and you put on, pants one leg at the time, just like them, and the same sort of struggles and fears and, insecurities that they have. And then they look at you and they go, you have that too, but you're extraordinary. You
Hmm.
can speak on a stage. Whoa, but you're also ordinary. Holy cow. Like, and then there's this connection, and that's the chip away at that calcification. And then you got the time for the wisdom, right? Now the window's open, and now I can share the lesson that the story just allowed for me to give to you, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And with all of this experience and gems and jewels that you're sharing, you also found time to write a book. Can you talk about
Yeah.
the book? Just look up.
Just look up 5 life-saving phrases every kid/human needs to hear. So here's the first thing about it. Super short, super bite-sizable, downloadable, readable, finishable, if that's a word. And yeah, it's a great book. And I love it, not just because I wrote it, and I don't think it's a great book just because I want to sell books, but the feedback we've gotten has been really, really awesome. It's exactly what we talked about. It's real, it's down to earth. But it's also full of great ideas that I think all of us need to apply in our lives. It's probably nothing that we don't already intuitively know, but in the busyness of our world, we just lose it. And so these are 5 quick reminders around self-worth, resilience, human connection, growth mindset, and gratitude. and they're, each one has got stories and some lessons after the stories, and then even some ways that you can apply it in your life, whether you're an educator, whether you're a parent, or whether you're a student. The stuff works for younger students or younger people as well as older humans as well. So yeah, it's Just Look Up. And this is a big part of what I use when I talk in front of students or in front of staff.
Where did the title come from, and why did you decide to call it that?
Well, our big thing is human connection. And in 2022, we feel that it is imperative that we remind ourselves where the juice in life is, and that's in the relationships. And the relationships that we have with other people are formed and forged by the human connections that we make. And in 2022, human connection is easier than ever to miss. And human connection is hard. And we live in a very efficient society that is 2-day shipping and instant messaging, and you get everything right away. And working for things is challenging, and our brain doesn't like to do things that are hard. Well, human connection is hard, but it's also incredibly important. And sometimes the hardest things are the right things. And so we go in and we share messages around human connection. And a big phrase and a big idea around that is just look up and see where your kindness, where your compassion can be used. And make no mistake about it, you will never remember at the end of your life any sort of experience probably that you got looking down at a screen versus the experience that you got when you were looking up and being with and around people that you love, and experiences that help you grow. And that can only be done right now, at least, without a screen and in real time with human beings.
It's so interesting you say that. Like I notice, especially triple down on COVID, everybody's screen time, screen time, screen time, because there's literally nothing else to do. But if you fast forward the effects of that, with social media and technology the way it is, we've never been more connected and also never been more disconnected than we have before.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think the ultimate outcome is for people who don't find a way to infuse themselves with a version of Joe Beckman and the connection and and pardon me, and just looking up and really making an effort to tune in to one another?
It just kind of depends. I think we're right at the precipice of we're seeing what's going on. But when you look at the statistics and what we can find so far, here's what it looks like. Ever since 2011, there has been a general increase and then this sharp spike in mental health, anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide ideation, all of it. A general increase in the sharp spike. What happened in 2011? Well, it's when market saturation happened with smartphones. 85% chance, no matter if you were living in Toronto, if you're living in Tulsa, if you were living in Tennessee, it doesn't matter where you were living, right? There was an 85% chance that you had a smartphone. Right around 2011 is when this saturated the market. Right around 2011 is when we see this general increase and then this sharp spike. And so I don't know where we're going from here. I think we're hopefully getting to the point where people are becoming more aware of the fact that there are dangers that go along with it. But I believe that the consequences are going to be wide and vast. And the only thing I can compare it to is another addiction that we had back in the day, and that was smoking. And I look back and I think about things like the fact that my mom, who's a great mom, literally in 1979, when she had me in a hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota, smoked a cigarette in the hospital. Now, in 1979, get this, if a nurse would have come in and said, put that out, you are in a hospital, the nurse would have been fired. That's how addicted we were. 1970, you could smoke a cigarette in a hospital. Anybody called you out, you would have been fired for insubordination. And now we look back and go, what were they thinking? Why didn't they know what we know now? But they didn't. They were right at the precipice of learning all the dangers of these cigarettes. And yet what we know is big tobacco, they knew what was in these things and they didn't tell us, right? And they didn't let their kids smoke and they didn't smoke, but they let everybody else smoke, right? And now the consequences that went along with it because they wanted to make money. Big tech is not all that different. There are people making hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year, putting these little hits on these apps and in these games. And like every time you take a drag from a cigarette, every ring, ding, vibration, notification, all that is strategically designed so that we become addicted. Why? Because the more we look here, the more they make money. Comparison is right there. And so, where do we go from here? Well, now we have amazing research done, and now it's taken a long time to shift, but smoking rates, I believe, are incredibly down compared to where they were back in 1980s and 1990s and things like that. And so my hope is that through research and awareness and people like me and people like you and parents that are invested in the outcome of their kids' lives are going to hopefully slowly start turning the ship, and we're going to start seeing some changes. Like I believe, just like back in 1979, where we look back and go, oh my gosh, why would you smoke a cigarette in a hospital? At some point, we're going to go, why are we giving 8-year-olds iPads for 8 hours a day?
Yes.
Like that's going to sound about as dumb as smoking a cigarette in a hospital. And yet every day we do it, right? Like there's going to be a time where cell phones in schools are probably, and who knows, but like there's going to be some sort of like rules that come in, regulations that come in place that are going to be like so obvious to us like 10 years from now. Like why weren't we thinking that then? And so my hope is that we're going to figure this out, but there's technology moves at the speed of light, and so it's like there's always going to be something different, but I don't know. I'm optimistic, so who knows.
I remember back in the day when computers just kind of hit the scenes. You had tradespeople and then you had tech people, and if you had tech abilities back in that time, everybody was like a carpenter or an electrician or a plumber or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
hands-on skills. But if you had tech skills, it's like, whoa, you're a hot commodity, right? But I'm finding that it's switching back because so many people rely so heavily on techs and apps and again, like having stuff delivered to their door, and we're getting less and less involved with our own physical activity and our physical interaction with our own world. I think we're going to experience a switch back, to your point. And I think all of that starts with people exactly like you, because the farther we get away from connectedness and emotional intelligence or vulnerability or the ability to even laugh as opposed to text an LOL,
Yeah.
people like you are going to become even more and more valuable. So, on behalf of all of us out here, thank you. We are so grateful for you.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to have the conversation and helping spread the message. I really appreciate it. And to all the people out there who are watching or listening to this right now, continue to push forward. I know that it's not easy in this world, no matter where you're at. If you're a parent, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a writer, if you're a performer, I just want to encourage you to continue to pursue the things that fire you up and give passion in your heart, because when you can pursue that, it just makes you a better person. It makes you a better parent. It makes you a better spouse or partner. It just makes you a better human. So I want to give you maybe the permission, if you will, of persistence as we continue to fight for our dreams and to live in our passions. So yeah.
You're amazing, buddy. I love you so much. If people
Love
are
you.
looking for you online, where is the best place they can find you?
Yeah. So if they're interested in getting a copy of the book, it's not on Amazon. So that's a little tricky, but we have our own little website. It's called justlookupbook.com. And we have international shipping. So we have no problem shipping it up to your friends, my friends up in Canada. So you can go there, or if you want to learn more about the work that we do in schools, you could go to till360consulting.com, TILL 360consulting.com.
You're awesome, buddy. Appreciate you.
Love your face.